And we should be live. I think we're live. Let's see. I'm just gonna check. Oh, nice. Okay. Okay, my mic is double. Let me. Hold on. Why is that? Hold on. Okay, wait. I think I got it. I should have just. Monitor only. Okay, say something now.
Hello.
Okay. I think. Say something now.
I got a fork.
Okay. I think we're good to go now. We got it.
Amazing.
Nice. Alright, I think the audio levels are good. I think everything's good. Stevie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're all good to go. Alright, well, welcome to our second ever, TRAPEZOID, roundtable discussion. What you think?
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
I'm hanging in there. I got my friend.
Hanging out, feeling good?
Just like semi, bricked, just like semi.
Semi.
I'm real sleepy.
Hell yeah. Oh, what's up, Alex?
Yo, how's it going?
Semi.
Hello.
Yeah, how's your day, Alex? Oh wait, I think Alex is super quiet. Hold on. Can you say something again, Alex?
Hi. You hear me now?
Okay, good.
I'm also mumbling. Is that better?
Yeah, there you go. That's much better. Nice.
Yo, I need a puppy.
Alright, well, welcome to our second ever TRAPEZOID chat session. Today we're going to be discussing Kylan Hillman's newest release on FASTLIFE. It's available on FASTLIFE. FASTLIFE.bandcamp.com. Feeling good.
Give us money. We need it. We've been building we've been building big sets for our shows, and we need funds.
Yeah, and it's been going pretty good, I would say. So as everyone knows, we did do an album release party show that was the same day that the album came out, and I think it went pretty well. What you think, Kylan?
Well, I just want to say it wasn't the same day. It was the morning after. Was it like 2 or 3 in the morning that it came out?
It was the what?
It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, the day after the show.
Oh, right. Oh, okay, yeah, true. That's true. So, yeah.
But, no. I think it went really well. I was very pleased. I think everybody played.
Right. Like, pretty good. What'd you say?
I have to know. Who was that in your picture there?
That's me.
That?
Yeah,
you sure about that?
Yeah, man, that's me. I'm like sitting in like a pile of balloons.
Really? I can't see you. It looks like somebody's like.
Oh, like You mean like the video?
Yeah.
Okay, so the video is Kylan. It's
Oh, okay.
So it's a recording from like the release album party.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing part of that on Instagram.
Yeah, and so it's like this clip of Kylan just going crazy and like twisting knobs and stuff.
Nice. Okay. It all makes sense now.
Yeah. And did you think that was me? Yeah, man. Hobbit. Yeah, so let's go over who performed at the show. It was me performing as Hobbit Pets. Steffi was performing as 1999 Doom. You can see Moo the puppet and on camera right there on the top left corner. So you know, we were pretty lit, as you can say. And then Kylan Hillman was performing as himself. Oh, there's Alex. What's up? Hell yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, what did you guys think about the show, Steffi and Kylan?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was like a good I don't know, man. Like I guess it was nice to see like the way that I saw it was I guess kind of like a good warm up. You know?
Yeah.
Especially since like it's like the first show that was organized since quarantine. You know?
Yeah, we're getting back into like the flow of things again. I feel like you know it does feel like kind of weird to get back into it after so long, you know, but it still feels really good. So that's how I felt about it. Was that the first show that? Well, I guess Kylan has been doing shows a lot recently, right?
That was basically the same, close to the same set that I did for my graduation recital.
Like your thesis?
Montclair State University. That's what makes up actually a lot of the album. Is pieces I use for that.
Oh, nice. Was that your thesis?
Much smoother than that. Like everything broke at my recital.
Right. Nice. Yeah, Alex, are you familiar at all with...
Appropriate response.
Now this is my first time ever performing. This is... Hold on. I'm not sure what's going on. Hold on.
What's going on?
There's like audio coming out from somewhere right now. I'm not sure. Oh, hold on. Okay, I got it. Hold on. Sorry, just got like this crazy thing just happened right now, but okay, hold on. I got it.
Yeah, is it good?
It's good to go. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. So Alex, are you familiar at all with Kylan's latest project?
I'm not super familiar with it, but I did hear some of it on the, like I said, the Instagram stream, and that was pretty cool.
Oh, right. Okay. Cool.
This track were like super ambient and I like the vocals. That was really neat.
Yeah. Was there anything that like stuck out to you?
The loop thing with the vocals was really unique. I thought that was really cool. It made like a really cool like soundscape that was like really ambient, like tranquil. I really liked it.
Right.
Cool stuff.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, man. Kylan, like, would you like to like describe a little bit more and kind of just get into like what your whole process was? What like when you got into like building that whole project?
Project that I use for that show and a lot of the album animated information. It's a combination of as well as instruments that I made. Max.
I think you're cutting out.
Hold on. Say that again. Kind of. It's combination of what?
Cutting out for some reason.
Yeah, try to just like repeat that again. Oh no. What just happened?
Truth there.
There.
Alright, Alex. I dare you to look at yourself in the mirror and say, "Wow, you were hot."
Oh no, here we go.
You're hot.
Oh yeah, is that in front of a mirror?
I mean, I guess the camera is a mirror.
Yeah, I guess that's close enough.
Right? That counts. I think he's probably just like resetting his camera. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Dolphin's here.
Oh, he's yeah, Dolphin's here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
you. Over the airwaves.
Well, your mic sounds really good.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Why does that sound so good?
Dolphin.
I worked really hard on this shit.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Quite nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Over the airwaves.
With the airways.
Literally.
How was this nigga?
Yeah. Alright.
There you go. We're started.
Sounds good.
Just skip.
Good.
Okay. So yeah, man. If you could just like just get into like describing what your whole setup was and just how you build that up and everything.
Sure. Yeah. So it was an Ableton live project combined with some stuff that I coded in Max MSP. I used them like both programs at the same time, and so basically my Max MSP stuff, which involved recording my voice and doing sampling and stuff, was running into my Ableton live project where I was running like various ambient, delay, echoey, noisy effects and stuff.
So like, what exactly is Max Live?
Yeah, so like Max for Live?
Yeah.
So Max for Live, that's not what I was using, by the way.
Oh.
Max for Live.
Wait, so what were you using?
Yeah, so what I was using was just like straight Max MSP, which is like a thing that basically lets you, it's like a visual programming language that lets you build essentially like instruments and modules and effects and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And so like Max for Live is, it just uses like Max MSP, but the plugins like actually integrate into the Ableton project GUI.
So it's
not
not.
plugin in the interface.
So it's like a third-party thing. It's not like a product of Ableton.
It is a product of Ableton.
Oh,
kind of
it
weird
is.
the way that works. Yeah.
Oh, what the heck?
I'm pretty sure that they were purchased by Ableton.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense now. Damn. So like, I honestly, I feel like I can't even try to begin to understand that whole software. But
I mean, it basically like Max does. You can do like basically anything that you can program in Max. You can do in a DAW like Ableton. It's just that it's a different interface, like a different way of working. I often find that a lot of the instruments that I build in Max, the way that it kind of works, I wouldn't necessarily think to do in Ableton.
Oh, okay, I see.
And I do a lot more for like live stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess it would help build that like ideal live setup.
Right. But mainly like two things I was using to like create big like walls of sound and like sample my voice, play it back. That was all Max.
So it's not Max for Ableton Live?
No, it's just Max MSP. The program.
Oh, Max MSP.
I think it was, I think it was like made for Ableton. I could be wrong about that.
Oh, right, okay. Dolphin, have you ever used Max
programming
MSP?
language?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
It's a programming language.
Oh, it's a programming language. Okay.
But
Have you ever used
like
Dolphin?
it's a graphic programming language, so you need something to view the graphics, and you use the Max app.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Right.
And if you have Max for Live, Max for Ableton Live, that is it allows you to see the Max patches in Ableton, and then also create a graphic interface for Ableton, so that your Max plugins that you create, they can show up in the. They don't pop out as like a window, like when you have other plugins like VSTs and audio units. It doesn't pop out as a window. You can see the graphic interface inside of Ableton with your other stock Ableton plugins.
Yeah.
So that's why Max for Live is such a big thing, and why Max is so synonymous with Ableton, is because it's so friendly to use inside of Ableton.
That makes a lot of sense.
That said, I would like to say any Ableton developers that are listening to this, please allow us to pop out Ableton stock plugin windows, because sometimes you just always have to be looking at one of them, you know?
Right.
Oh yeah, it's stuck inside Ableton.
It's stuck inside, not just stuck inside Ableton, but it's stuck inside a track in Ableton. So if you start
You're
doing stuff in another track, you no longer can see that plugin. And like, Looper is great inside of Ableton, but sometimes you need to see it, and you can't be clicking around to see it.
Yeah, that's actually the exact reason why I don't use Max for Live with a lot of the instruments I use in Max. Because I need to be like actually looking at them and watching what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Damn. So I guess to get into like a different question that I've been curious to ask you, Kylan, and I feel like to kind of just introduce anyone who's watching or who will watch this, like why music? What got you into music? What's so great about music?
Well, what got me into music was my vehement hatred of vaporwave, and I wanted to destroy it.
They hate you, do. Damn. Okay.
That's deep. But actually, I got into music mainly through Guitar Hero 3 when I was like 10.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think Guitar Hero like kind of spawned an entire generation of like baby musicians.
Right. I think that's true.
But I picked up guitar because of it. My first like favorite band was Dragon Force.
Nice.
And so I like went through a phase where I hated Dragon Force, and now I'm like wrapped back around. I love Dragon Force.
It's funny. I also turned to that. Dragon Force is so lame. Then it's like, you know what? They're so awesome. Like my kid.
How do you feel about Fall of Troy?
Oh, I love Fall of Troy.
Yeah, they're also good. It's like every phase where we're like, it's Guitar Hero, and I'm like, these guys are fun.
Oh snap! Dolphin is just setting up his camera.
But I after getting into guitar, I started going to the School of Rock.
Right.
And that kind of like informed my trajectory. I think that basically like I think what made me want to be a career musician was really enjoying that experience.
Okay, I see.
Dolphin, the aquatic kids.
That's what it is.
Nice. But like, so Kylan, like, what led you to where you are now, which is not like developing this whole album into what it is today?
So the album is a little weird for me now because I'm doing much more cohesive projects, but the album is made one part like 40-minute improvisation that I did with my like setup, and I think it's like 4 of best pieces that also fit the album that I did when I was at Montclair State University, getting my bachelor's. I got really into like experimental music then. That's when I got into electronic music.
Right.
So that's kind of what led me to that.
Okay. So I'm curious, like, what led you to choose to study music? Because that's a pretty big step. I would say.
Yeah. I think originally I actually wasn't going to go to school. So before I went to Montclair, I went to community college.
Right.
And that was just because I actually got kicked out of the band and had like that I thought was going to be like a career thing, and I had nothing to do. So I decided that I would take some classes in theory so that I would be a better guitar teacher. That was originally the reason I went.
Fantastic.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so what got me into the kind of music I'm making now, what sort of started that trajectory, is I got really into 20th century classical music. I got into, like if anybody knows, like Schoenberg, Berg, I got into Ligeti and Schnicke, and Penderecki, and I realized that I loved composing. I was always like a songwriter, but composing, like actually writing down notation and thinking in a more experimental way. I think that was kind of like the moment when I realized I wanted to like continue to study music.
Wow. And that'll lead to I am native information.
That's what I'm talking about.
Are you native information?
Yes, we all are. True.
That's all.
DNA, it's information.
That's right.
Molecules, it's information. Anything that we can observe, it's information.
It's true.
So is this
as long as we perceive it, it is information.
Indeed.
That's right.
Or I guess it doesn't even have to be perceived,
Down
right?
to the long scale, the smallest things that exist, all information. It's all bits and bobs.
It's mobs.
Please make sure that it says it's information.
It's all information. Dr. Professor Hillman, 2022.
Yeah.
So
You'll be on that.
So like, is this your first like solo album?
Yeah. This is the first time that I had either enough material, or just like the confidence to release like a full-length album.
So how does that feel to like know that you've officially released your first like solo project?
Well, it makes everything from here feel kind of easier because I feel like I got over like the initial hump of like doing the first one. Now, and especially because I'm out of school right now and I'm just working. I have a lot more time to just like work on music. So the next couple of things I've been working on have come like much faster than this first one did.
Right. Okay, so you're getting into the flow now, basically. Like that's what you're saying.
Yeah. And I feel like I've gotten to a certain point, skill-wise, where I'm happy. I'm kind of consistently happy with the things I'm making right now. And I think that part of that confidence comes from being able to release a full length that I'm overall really pleased with.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess that kind of leads into my next question, which is like, where do you see like your current like your next few projects going? Like where your sound is gonna go?
Well, I'm kind of branching out into multiple things. I don't have any specific plans for stuff I'm releasing under my own name. What I am doing is I'm starting to work more on a project called Mangophonica.
Oh, right.
And that project is kind of like a whole wonderphonics thing. So it's very like influenced by dance music and experimental dance music, and it's engaging a lot with style and like genre as like material in the music. and engaging a lot of samples and things like that. Actually, I have like a whole costume. And
right.
thing I'm doing with it too. I think I can do that.
So that's what everyone can look forward to coming from you in the near future.
That's right.
Damn. We'll stay updated, man.
Dr. Professor, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
I'm very curious. Aside from Vaporwave, what else do you really hate?
Let's see. What else do I really hate? I don't hate many things outside of Vaporwave. It's kind of my one thing. Oh, I really hate Lollycore.
Oh. That's true.
Lollycore?
Thank you.
Yeah. Do knows.
I think thinking of the same thing. Yeah, that is kind of gross.
I don't even know what it sounds like. How would you describe it?
It's like it comes in like multiple permutations. Like so, I think how it originally started is it was like a noise mashcore kind of thing. But it would use like I think it was coming from a place of being edgy, but it would use very like not cool depictions of elements from manga and anime. But it would also just sample a lot of anime stuff. I think one of the like producers that got the most famous who did some like Lollycore adjacent stuff was Bullshit.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Like you probably know.
Is there a separation between like a oh man, he's really groovy.
Yeah, what's up right now? Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, is there like I like how he's just like raving to like a podcast basically.
Yeah.
Feels really good to
So is there a separation between like a moe core and like a lolly core? Because moe and lolly don't have to sync up. Like those are different things.
Right.
You're right. They don't. I think that you can do like a moe core without doing like a lolly core. I think where the line is when you're like clearly and obviously like sexualizing depictions like underage girls.
Right.
You know.
Yikes.
Big yikes.
There's like an issue with the anime industry like as a whole with that.
Yeah. I would agree.
It's like with anime and with manga. I was chatting with the Dolja man himself, Alex Pierre. We were chatting about this, and it was like a very cut and dry conversation. It was like, why is this still a thing?
Yeah.
Like Japan doesn't even have that low of an age of consent anymore. I think they changed it to 18.
Yeah.
I guess.
So it's like, what's the issue? Like we're not even close to that era anymore.
Yeah. And there's also like a problem in anime and manga with like just the sexualization of women and the way the objectification of like women and the way that they're depicted often still.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Just across the board, huh? It seems like any seasonal anime is like just bound to have some grimy, like fan service that is like this is completely unnecessary. Actually, let me know what you think about this, Dr. Professor. Somebody was telling me once that there's like a almost like a litmus test to sexualization in media in general, and that's does the character like feel sexy in that moment?
Mm-hmm.
And then how is the narrative framing that moment? And if they don't feel sexy in that moment, and it's framed as the viewer should feel sexy about that moment, then it's inappropriate sexualization. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. So you're saying that like the character has to like seem like they're enjoying it, basically, what I'm hearing?
Yeah, like they're they feel sexy. They are intending in that moment to be sexual, and if they're not, it shouldn't be framed as sexual.
I think that's right. I think that there's definitely times where you can obviously tell that despite a situation being non-consensual, that it's being framed in a sexual way.
Right.
And I think that really is like the line for me. And I think obviously I think the other part of that you mentioned, I think it does have a lot to do with I think it has to do with like cultural framing. I think it has to do with like what the vibe is at the time. It reminds me of a few years ago I watched Rocky for the first time.
Oh, really?
And overall it was like a great movie and I really liked it. It was actually really wholesome. But like there's this one scene. I forget what's his girlfriend's name? Does anyone know?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. But it's like he basically it's like a sex scene, but it's framed as like she's trying to leave his house, and it's framed as like she's embarrassed, but she's trying to leave his house. He keeps stopping her until she finally like submits and like makes out with him, and it's just really like gross.
Yikes.
Especially because like Rocky is this big like muscular imposing like girlfriend in those films was really small.
It's like, jeez, man.
There's a lot of kind of B movies and kind of lampoon kind of stuff that especially like through the 2000s portrays a lot of scenes like that where like the movie frames it, hey audience, look at how sexy this is, and yet there's like an unconsenting individual that's like clearly in a dire situation.
Right.
And it's shocking to see how many things that works of media that I grew up with contain those scenes.
It's also shocking how like little a lot of us like realized it was happening.
Right. This is true. Yeah.
Another film. In terms of like elements of media and works of media that we rage against. One that it's kind of my thing to bring it up in these conversations is Mrs. Doubtfire. To me, that's one of the scummiest movies out there. That's like, oh, Robin Williams, we love him, and he's phenomenal. But the music of that and like the narrative that the film frames is disgusting to me. And then that usually gets people all riled up because it's like, oh no, but Robin Williams, like, I love him so much, and I grew up with that movie, and I'm like, yeah, the whole film is disgusting.
You know what's another film that's like that? When you like rewatch Beetlejuice.
Really?
Yeah, because if you think about it, like Beetlejuice and Lydia Dees, the character that Winona Ryder plays in that movie, she's only like 14, 15 years old. And like Beetlejuice like trying to marry her.
That's crazy.
That is gross. And wow, Beetlejuice is another one. Holy shit.
Yeah. But like going back to the whole like anime thing, and then like I guess we go back to you know like music related stuff with Kylan. Because it's this conversation getting kind of like
it's interesting though. It's
crazy because it's like, I am somebody that I've watched anime from a very young age, and with that, I feel like my brain has kind of like rot because of anime a little bit, that I feel like certain things, or certain like cues, or, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like sometimes like things kind of like go past me, and I don't like realize that like something is kind of like gross, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I say that because recently I got into this anime called Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, and it's this anime has a lot of like hype behind it, you know, and like so because of that I started to watch it, and then like it wasn't until like like I showed it to Harold recently, and he's like, wait a second, so you mean to tell me that this ghost is in this girl's bathroom? and they're like underage girls, he just kind of like haunts the bathroom, you know?
That's
And
insane.
I was just like, yeah, like this is weird, and like it's crazy how like to this day, for whatever reason, like it's like I guess like within like otaku culture, like it's like I don't know if it's like because of like the hype that a lot of anime has, but like it makes us like not realize how like freaking weird like something is, but it's definitely something like I don't know, man. Like we're gonna have to address it, especially considering how popular anime has gotten. And I fear the next generation's like minds being like rot because of just how creepy anime is.
That's true. By the way, I just wanted to throw in, Stephanie made a really good point. Sorry, 1992.
Yeah.
But my girlfriend texted me, told me that Rocky's girlfriend's name is Adrian. So, in case everyone's wondering, it's Adrian.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
We love Adrian.
Shout out to Dr. Professor Girlfriend.
Shout out. Yo, if she's watching right now, she should let us know how the audio sounds.
Yeah. By the way, just another shout out to my girlfriend. She, that we used for our last live show, she like did probably 60 to 70% of the work, like helping me design that.
Yeah. Take a look at the live feed. There's a little clip of Kylan twisting knobs and shit.
Twisting.
And if you, it's kind of hard to see the whole set, but you can see the background and everything. That was all Madison, so big props to Madison. She did really good.
Yeah, she did so good that I actually suggested that we actually bring her into FASTLIFE as just like a set designer.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
But speaking of 1999 Dune too, she did a really
I was
interesting.
looking at Shoji this whole time on that monitor. That's Dr. Professor there?
That's Dr. Professor.
Oh, now that my comment about Raven to the podcast is really dumb.
Raven to the
I thought that was Shoji over there.
Nah.
Now this makes so much more sense. This is what happens when you have technical difficulties and show up late.
That's right.
That's also, I still respect you.
But you know what?
Thank you.
We were all fashionably late, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but
we gotta do better for our listeners. We gotta do better.
That's true. And we shall. Here on
I'm going to build a studio for us in the relatively near future. In the big scheme of things.
Yo, we're going to do a live stream.
We can all just kind of be there, pandemic or not, it'll be ready for us.
Now, I wanted to ask you, Kylan, and also 1999 Doom, about her set. I feel like she did a really unique live performance. By the way, I will be uploading the performances. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm going to see if I need to edit them at all, but I do plan on hopefully uploading all of the set soon on YouTube.
Indeed.
Yeah, but what did you think about her live performance?
It was dope. Doom knows that I'm her biggest fan.
Right.
If I had the money to be a wealthy benefactor, I would.
Like Kylan literally like he feels like a sensei to me. I'm like, yo, thank you.
No, Doom's set was great. I heard a lot of a little behind the scenes. Doom sent me a little preview of a track that she's working on, and it was really cool. Very like rhythmic noise and reggaeton and all these things. And I finally got to see kind of the full picture of like the stuff that she's been cooking up in my lab. It's really cool. It's really hip. It's reggaeton like you've never heard it before. I think one of the things that we we talked about before reggaeton, because I sort of like asked her and Shoji to like give me recommendations, because I really don't know that much about it. To sort of get more into it. And one of the things I was finding is like the beats are great, but they don't hit. Like they don't boom. And Doom's music goes boom. It really goes.
It does. It really does.
I need to listen to this.
Yeah, Dolphin. I really wish that you could have been there to see the performance, because it was pretty unique.
Fantastic.
There was drama. There was bear got crucified. There were bubbles.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And the outfit was great.
Yeah, Doom, could you talk a little bit about that? Like what inspired that, maybe?
I don't know. I just think it's so funny. What happens is that I was thinking, like, okay, you know, like the songs that I performed, they didn't have my vocals per se, except that one song that I performed with the crucifixion that I did with Teddy Bear.
Right.
And I was like, man, you know, like, because I'm just starting out, figuring out how to, I guess have a presence when I'm performing my music. You know, it's a lot different DJing, you know, because like when you're a DJ, it's like you're sort of hyping up like the mix that you're performing, but then when like you're performing your own music, like you're trying to hype up your own music, and I feel like that kind of like adds a little bit more. I guess you want to have like a little more care to it.
Right.
And I'm still trying to figure out how to perform my music. You know, I'm going to perform more of my vocal stuff, especially on the 18th of June is when I will perform it for the first time ever.
Oh, that would be in the garage.
So the crucifixion came from I don't even know, man. It just kind of came in my mind, and I was like,
That's awesome.
I ordered the cross, and then my sister, a couple of days before the show that we just did not so long ago, she was like, oh my god, it's look at Teddy Bear. Do you remember Teddy Bear? And I was like, oh my god, Teddy Bears that my sister and I would play with when we were like kids, and it was like the perfect size for the cross.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. I do remember that.
I was like, I'm sorry, actually. I'm gonna have to like use Tinita for the cross. It's perfect.
So why crucifixion? Doom.
I've had a lot of religious trauma.
Okay.
That's right. And we can
like,
talk about that for hours.
I guess sort of how do I say this? I feel like using the word catharsis is sort of a cop-out sometimes, but like, I guess it's kind of like, I just thought it'd be really funny to like put like the little teddy bear on the crucifix, and then like the teddy bear like not actually dying, and then like I have like my little bubble gun and then like shoot it with it, you know?
Wow.
Hell yeah.
By the way, really quick, I just wanted to mention, my people are telling me that Doom's audio is echoing, or that it's generally echoing. Anybody hear that? I don't hear it.
I think it's an OBS thing, but wait, it's is it only Doom?
I think it's only Doom.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I don't think. I think it's all of us.
Is it all of us?
I think it's. Yeah. Wait. Hold on. Let me see. Okay. I
can
think I
also
fixed
pull
it
it up.
now.
Is it on Twitch?
It's on YouTube. I think I fixed it. I think it should be good now.
Alright.
Yeah. But yeah. So what were you saying?
No, I was just saying how like I just thought it'd be like great, you know, to have like the imagery of the little teddy bear on the cross, and you know, it being shot at with like a bubble gun.
The bubbles.
Yeah, because it's very like non-violent, you know, like
Right.
you know, like you like work
It's kind
up
of
to
cute.
it and you think like, oh, it's gonna be really dark, but no, you know, it's just bubbles, you know.
Especially the sound effects that you synced it up to.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I really like that combination of having like that cute creepiness.
Yeah.
Okay, apparently we fixed the echo.
Yeah, I
Okay,
fixed
cool.
it. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, sometimes OBS
Yeah,
is a little confusing.
Like off trying to figure out like how to perform without being like that you know like that DJ that's just kind of like bopping their head up and down, you know, like no,
Right.
really boring, you know. I'm
What?
trying to figure out how to not be like that.
Doom, I think we were having a conversation the other day ironically at a DJ show, where
Yeah.
we were talking about how the way that you present yourself when you perform and the way that you dress and all these things about your visual appearance is all contained within like your artistry and who you are as an artist. Like it can't just be your music, especially now in like a very like visually driven age.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's true. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a lot to say about that, but
Yeah, go ahead. That's what this is for.
We got time.
Okay, sure. No, no, I feel like especially, you know, I think a lot about, I mean, I don't Peter Steele from Typo Negative, but if you guys know who Peter Steele is from Typo Negative, I guess rest in peace. He was the lead singer for that band, and you know, he was like this like really tall, like vampire-esque dude.
Oh, right.
And you know, he would like work out for his performances and stuff. And till this day, like so many people like just like drool over him, and
Right.
I guess sort of like the energy and like imagery that he brought forth through Typo Negative. And you know, something that he said, and it's like stuck with me ever since, has been, you know, like, you know, when you're performing on stage, you know, people want a sort of like character to escape with, you know? And yeah, so that's why I feel like, you know, being able to establish a sort of like character definitely like elevates the music, you know? Like beyond, like, I guess like the sound, you know, but
yeah, I mean, I think even if you're like just being yourself, like you can still amplify yourself and like your identity and the things about your personality that you want to amplify. Like it doesn't have to be a costume, but there does have to be. I think there does have to be something in there that is like visually and like viscerally performative, if that makes sense.
That's true. Yeah.
yeah.
I think for me, like the way that I see it a lot of times, I think maybe it's because I studied advertising, is like it feels like a brand to me, you know, and it almost feels like I'm like advertising this brand as I'm performing, and I guess that's kind of how I see it, but I feel like it ties into all that a lot too. I think Dolphin might have an interesting perspective on this too.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. What
That'd be
question
funny
specifically?
If you're just like, no, I don't.
No, I absolutely have opinions on almost everything. What specifically on that topic is the question?
How do you feel like when you perform on stage, you know, do you feel like it's almost like this sort of character that you're like portraying so people can like take that away from your performance and kind of just like maybe even like lose themselves within this character that you're portraying, or maybe like a brand or something?
It's always a story on my stage. And that's important to me because there's so many stories that people have not heard yet. And the story is the best way that we can communicate ideas to our audiences. And it's very important to me that the stories that I feel are not getting shared out there get out there.
Right.
Because diversity and perspective is one of the greatest strengths of the human race.
Right. Damn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Without hearing all of those valuable perspectives, we're at a great disadvantage. And I want to uplift everybody with these stories and these perspectives.
Damn.
It's the journey of the Dolphin Uppercut Avenger. I'm out to unite the Scion of the Stars. And that will only happen if we continue to uplift each other. So, on my stage, it's a story.
That was beautiful. I
Thank you.
completely
You're part of
agree.
that story. All of you are part of that story.
Thank you.
Our
I
dolphin
feel-
story, yes.
I think we all sort of, you know, I think we're all kind of on the same page if you really think about it, you know? I think the way
Yeah.
that we all think about performing on stage and what that means to us, I feel like it's not that different. What you think,
That's
Dr.
true. Except,
Dr. Professor?
I don't know. Shoji makes vaporwave, and I hate that. I don't know. I don't think I agree with you.
I hate to break it to you, man, but your album is vaporwave.
No, don't say that.
It's too late.
No, you gotta take it back.
Wait,
You're gonna go to jail.
did we talk about why you hate vaporwave? I kind of said what else besides vaporwave,
yeah.
but did we go over
Yeah.
that?
No, we
We
never
did.
really did. But
Can
we
you
talk about
summarize
it.
it real quick for me?
I mean, sure. I don't like vaporwave because it's just when no talent musicians, quote unquote, take samples of other people's music and they just slow it down, and I think that is offensive.
But can't that be said about low quality works of media in any genre?
Yeah, it's also. I should probably also mention that the hating vaporwave thing is a meme, and I don't actually feel that way. I like mod vaporwave.
That's true.
But I think
You should have
that-
leaned into that. You should have leaned into the gag.
Well, I'm worried. I'm worried that I'm worried that people will be mad because they think I actually hate vaporwave. But
But the controversy is good for your brand.
Controversy. Think about
that's true. It's good for the
controversy.
brand. But I forget why I said that. Oh yeah, I remember why. The reason that I think I started saying that though was I have a distaste that I've been exploring a lot lately of labels and genres that feel too specific and confining to the
Right,
point
right,
where and I think this is more of a community problem where people within a certain community or of a micro genre start to make things specifically so that it can be that thing, and that feels like I don't think I necessarily like hate it, but it just I think I'm like suspicious or dubious of that as like a
Dubious
pursuit.
leaks.
I just think like how much can you achieve as an artist when you're only trying to make something that is like
Right.
a specific thing.
Yeah,
I
it's
could
it's
see
a
that.
different goal, but yeah, I feel like I do agree with you.
It also needs to be said that I do like Shoji's music too.
I mean, yeah, I did perform my Plunderphonics Hobbit Pets at your release album party, so
Yeah, as Oksanen's Habapets is probably like one of my favorite things that I heard. I know it didn't come out this year, but that I heard
Right.
this year.
thank you, man. That
Yeah, I
means
really
a
like
lot.
it.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't think I've ever seen a live vaporwave set that's the recreation of the
Right.
production with
Did you go to
with like the
Electronicon?
samples.
Yeah.
But didn't you?
That's something I really want to see. I want to see like
Didn't
somebody
you
going up there
go-
with records and tapes and
Oh,
a
I
bunch
see
of
what you
effect
mean.
pedals and like recreating the vaporwave.
I think
Oh.
he doesn't do like he's not within vaporwave at all. But like Aaron Dilloway kind of from Wolf Eyes kind of does that with like his tape loop stuff. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but yeah.
Wait, Dolphin, did you go to Electronicon?
The first one, Electronicon 1, yes.
Right. Okay. I feel like Christ, if you know who that is, he kind
thought-
of did that, but like
Christ didn't do a DJ set?
no, he just
Oh.
like he did it in Ableton, and
You know
so
what?
like
Actually,
cool.
thinking about it, in an upcoming Manglephonica project, I actually did do that. I like
Hey,
slow things down in real time.
that's fantastic.
yeah, and I feel like that's Dynamic Shroud.
Doesn't
They kind of do
DDS
that.
do that?
Yeah, that's essentially what
Do
they
they?
do live.
Yeah, like DDS does that like all the time actually. Like I'm
Right.
recalling like all their performances, and I'm like, wait, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
they
in-
recreate their music like
Then in
live.
that case, then I've actually seen vaporwave done that a lot. It's just the crisis of that is the cross-modal synthesis of the creation of vaporwave and what the audience can be witness to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, does the audience like know that that's what you're doing? This is.
I
the-
certainly
the
didn't.
Yeah,
I
this is
certainly
the crux
didn't.
Of, like, this is the constant problem of like electronic music is that
Right.
the audience.
Yeah.
Like when you play a violin and you play a note on the violin, the audience
You can
is aware of the fact that
see.
like you're playing that note. You can see it, but like with electronic music, they do not know what you're doing unless you make
Because
it really
you're
obvious.
looking at like a computer screen.
Yeah.
The most cross-modal synthesis that one can experience on stage is percussion because it's so
Right.
simple
Yeah.
to see
That's
a drum
true.
being smacked with anything and
Right.
being like, oh, it made a sound. Smack.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a sound.
Which is honestly, it's so interesting that you mentioned that because like, so like a long time ago, back when I got into James Blake, and like his very early performances where like he barely even sang, it was just like
Yeah.
his like, he had this like big pad that he would hit with drumsticks, and it would trigger like the specific like samples, and he would like reconstruct his songs in that way,
Yeah.
kind of like looping it, and like, so I feel like a performance like that is really interesting, and I feel like that would be
Do
a
you
really
guys-
good way to
Do you
incorporate
guys think
that
that
sort of sound.
James Blake is vaporwave?
He's dubstep.
I think that James Blake is speedcore.
He's what?
I think he's speedcore. Prove me wrong.
I could
Well,
see an
anything
argument
can be
being made
anything.
about that. Yeah.
Depending on how good at arguing you are.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because like I mean, if you watch his early performances, you can see how he's building his tracks with samples on stage, but using
cool,
like
yeah.
drumsticks and a pad.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like-
literally like nah though.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I think that in that same way, like looping is a really powerful tool live because you could build these like really big like textures, and the audience is kind of always aware of what you're doing.
Right.
But at the same time, I do think that way of doing things, which like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, so if you're only one person, and you're trying to like, organically build like a big wall of sound, you have to kind of do it thing by thing, unless you just trigger all of them at the same time, which kind of is, it takes a lot of that organicism like out of it. But at the same time, like you feel with that kind of setup that it always has this very specific kind of like arc and form to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There is an opportunity, you know, we talked about this as a big problem with electronic music, and, you know, how do we cross that cross-modal gap? And there is a lot of opportunity for electronic music to use, you know, the light show as an element to kind of fill that void a little bit. And I feel like with the resources that we have available to us now at very low cost, the technological resources, we have Resolume is extremely easy to make reactive visuals within if you know the basics of Resolume. You've got, but that's expensive. But then you've got VDMX, which is not very expensive. And you have, if you use Ableton already, you have access to, what's the VJ software? What's the VJ plugin for Ableton? It's called, well, there is one of those. It's a VJ software that lives inside of Ableton as plugins. You have access to that. Touch Designer, I think, is free to start using. Touch Designer, what else? There,
You have
Virtual DJ.
I'm just kidding.
Jitter's another one.
They
There's
do
also,
have
like, if you already use like Max MSP, you can learn to code in Jitter, which is like Max's like visual portion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell me about.
visuals.
Tell me about Jitter. Like, for example, let's say I'm doing a live looping set in Ableton, right? And I've got a looper on like a bunch of different tracks. Like, I've got one looper plugin on a bunch of different tracks, and I want to kind of use Jitter to just in the most basic way fill that cross-modal gap in between the looping that I'm doing and the light show. What could I do in Jitter that's like super simple, like some audio reactive or anything?
Oh, so I mean, literally, what you could do is you could just set Jitter to detect. You could route your an input from Ableton into Jitter, and then just have it detect the like a volume threshold for and you can set it to make it as complex as you want. So you can set it for each individual track that you have that's doing a looper, or you could just like jam the whole thing into like one threshold and do it that way. I've done like I think both. For my live setups, like normally I like to just because a lot of my stuff is like mixed down into like a stereo track, I usually end up just like sending the whole like texture into Jitter so it can like react to that with volume thresholds. But yeah, like basically any like just like the thing I said with like anything you could do in Max, you could also do in a DAW. Like anything that you could do in like VJ software, you could also do with Jitter. It just takes being able to like code it.
Is there, so Jitter's one option, but do you know any other ways that people can get into like programming that, I know some people don't like Max because it's like relatively high latency. Do you know of any other ways that you could do visuals with like lower latency?
Yeah, that is a problem. I mean, I think all the ones that you mentioned are good. I also know of like Magic for MacBook. It's pretty good.
Magic, yeah.
It has like low latency. Yeah, it's really easy to use too. It's similarly like a visual programming, but it like does more things with you. You work with like modules. But it's really simple to use, and it has like low latency, and it has really good quality. So I mean, I guess for Mac users, I would recommend that.
Mac also has access to Quartz Composer. You got any opinions on Quartz Composer?
No, I don't think I've heard of Quartz Composer.
Quartz Composer.
Yeah, Quartz Composer. That's like how like I found out about Quartz Composer because it's a Quartz Composer patch is one of the old default Mac screensavers with like just some like random like colors and stuff. And I was like, what happened was when I switched to a new operating system, I lost that screensaver, and I really liked that screensaver. It was just like a bunch of like gradients and stuff, like very smooth, soft screensaver. And I wanted it back, and then I went and searched for it, and it was like, that screensaver is just a Quartz Composer patch. And here it is. And I was like, Quartz Composer? It's like built into Max.
Yeah,
really?
That's cool.
Like not Max, like not Max cycling.
Right.
It's like Macintosh. It's built into OS X.
Oh, that's dope. I think also, just like in the same line of thought, not necessarily a visual thing, but I think like, I haven't personally gotten into it, and I would really love to, but I think like most musicians who do electronic music like owe it to themselves to mess around with like modular synthesis. just because like a lot of these things where we're talking about patches and like patch cables and making modules work with each other and react to each other, that's all like a modular synthesis thing, basically, where like you're taking these like modules and you're plugging them into each other and having them like react to each other in various ways. You can use like BCV rack is a free option to like mess around with it. But I think it makes a lot of this stuff with like patching and like programming, I think for musicians it makes it make a little more sense.
That's actually really interesting, because you could even take that a step further and say that modular synthesis is a good learning tool for understanding abstraction and technology.
I think so, yeah. I think that's true.
Because it's visual, it's tactile.
Damn.
And I mean, through that, even like, through modular synthesis, I ended up, don't ask me to recite it right now because I kind of forget the details, but it taught me how like synthesis in general works, which is obviously really important for making electronic music, because at least half the ways that we make any sound is through synthesis.
I definitely learned a lot of synthesis watching modular synthesizer videos on YouTube and not even touching them.
Right, that's true.
What? That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, well, most of the synthesis I've ever done was on Ableton plugins.
But
also, even just opening up a plugin, like if you make a synthesizer sound, you've programmed something, like you've created a patch. Like if you can do that, you can absolutely figure out how to tackle stuff like Max, or even like Super Collider that takes like hard coding and like text-based coding.
Whoa.
This is actually a big way in which like Bitwig is beating Ableton, because Bitwig is so modular.
Oh really?
Bitwig. What kind of wig is that?
Bitwig was apparently, don't quote me on this, but apparently Bitwig was people who worked on Ableton 9, and they were kind of unhappy with how like their work was adapted into like Ableton's business, and then they realized that their contract allowed them to continue to use their technology that they had developed for Ableton 9 for anything else. Like it was not like they had the rights to use it beyond Ableton, so they went and they made Bitwig.
How did you know that? What the heck?
I heard it from somebody who was trying to convince me to download Bitwig, which I did, so it worked.
Nice.
Whether it's true or not, it's a compelling story.
Does anybody use like notation software?
I need to get some. You got a recommendation?
Well, so the two like big daddies for that kind of software, notation software, is Sibelius. Sibelius and Finale. And so similarly to your story with Bitwig, a bunch of people working on Sibelius. Sibelius is like a nightmare, but Finale is too. They're both like nightmares and awful to use in various ways, but Sibelius's team was really dissatisfied with the way things were going in the company, and they went and made they made their own thing called Dorico, which in many ways is a lot better than Sibelius if you want to do things like extended notation. Like it makes it much easier to kind of work outside the box with notation. Or so I've heard. I've never actually tried it.
Whoa.
Oh, fantastic.
Sounds crazy.
Honestly, when I do like scores and stuff at this point, I kind of just like work in Adobe Illustrator and make weird circles and X's and signs that performers are supposed to follow.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Guys, I actually have to get going. I have a film shoot early in the morning. I'm going to be shooting some video.
No, I was going to say, I think we should, in about maybe like 10-15 minutes, just to start wrapping it up. But,
yeah, I'm gonna get going right now, because I have to feed myself. I gotta get some quality nutrition and some quality rest.
Do it up,
So I'm gonna get going. But I'll leave you with this song that I wrote for Dr. Professor Hillman in commemoration of this event. So here's the song.
Okay.
100.
Oh, fuck. That was incredible.
That was amazing.
That's a
Damn,
ocarina,
dude.
right? Is that what they call it?
That was an ocarina. That was a Legend of Zelda
That was a
right
macadamia.
there.
Yeah. But so before we end though, I feel we went a lot of different places and it was great. But I do need to ask, do you have any more questions about my album? Because I don't think we discussed it very much.
Right. We did discuss it a little bit in the beginning, I guess, but what was it? So I guess I mostly just wanted to know, like, just the overall like background of how you got to this point, because I feel like, I don't know, I always feel like every single album has like a lifetime of choices that kind of like led to that spot, you know, and that sound.
Yeah.
I guess
yeah.
as a composer, right, what made you decide to make this sort of sound that's not tethered to anything, that's like I feel like this sort of sound that you have, you know, that kind of fits into like the mashcore genre, right? Like,
I would say it's more, if you were gonna tie it to anything, it would be more like ambient glitch noise,
right, because it does feel like that. I guess my question is like, what led you to choose a sound that's like, I think a little bit harder for most people to understand, you know? Like, it's not the type of thing you would hear on the radio.
Sure.
Like, you kind of have to have a certain appreciation for music.
Right.
And, like, especially as a composer, to create this sort of sound. So, like, what led you to that?
Well, I think ultimately what got me there was an interest in sound as a material and a medium.
Yeah.
I'll just say a little bit about this. Is sort of like very much a composition school thing. A lot of the time when we think about music, we think about pitch and we think about rhythm. So like we think about an A versus a C, or like this is a G, this is a B. You make a G chord by playing like G B D, and if you add an F on it, it's the G7 chord. Like we think of music in terms of that, and we think of it in terms of pulse and like this is a quarter note and this is an eighth note and stuff like that. Well, another dimension of music is timbre, like the way that things actually sound. So like a violin's E4 and can violins play C4? I think they can. Yeah, and piano C4 they sound completely different because of the timbre of both instruments, the like quality of the sound. And that I started to become fascinated with that dimension of music. And so that kind of led me to play a lot with sound and have a lot of ideas about sound that involve very, very tactile things, things in appreciation of sounds from nature, and thinking about how those sounds work and making them in my own music in various ways.
Right. Would you say that there's an appreciation for like the unpredictability of like sound? Ooh. My mic just fell.
Again.
Hold on.
Sure.
Yeah, I said, is there an appreciation in this album specifically for like the unpredictability of like live sound and live performance?
Yes. So I think like you know the album is I cut up like a 40-minute improvisation that I did. And I think that improvisation is something that became really important to me as an artist in my practice. Just because I think, coming from a composition background, there are certain things that you can't, or that are very difficult to create using planned forms of composition that are much easier to create if you just improvise them. So like one one thing that I started doing a lot when I was kind of searching for, I was in sort of like a compositional rut, is I just started like scatting, basically. I started
right. Right.
Like that kind of stuff is like, it's really difficult to notate, but it's
Right.
really easy to just do it and record it.
Because it's also something that's like, you can't just like, I think it depends on so many variables, you know, that make
that's true.
the sound very unique in that, like, for that specific moment.
Yeah.
You know? And like a lot of natural variables too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that my mission became to figure out ways of like consistently reproducing the vibe or aura of those moments. And so that affected my notation style, but more importantly for this album, it affected just the way that I work with sound and electronics. Like most of the ways that I set up my processes that I use on the album are built around sort of like carving away at randomness and noise and sculpting them into the shapes that I want them to be.
Right.
So there's that element of like randomness and chaos, but it's contained within the boundaries that I set.
Right. And I really feel like I really did hear that in this album, and I really did enjoy that.
Thank you.
In this project, especially because it reminded me a lot of this other album that I really, really loved, which is called Divine Weight by Alex Zhang Hungtai. And he's
I've
heard
of him, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite artists of all time. But he did this incredible album. Again, it's called Divine Weight, but essentially the album is, he took recordings of himself sort of like performing on a saxophone, you know, not composing anything, not planning anything out, kind of just recording himself and just kind of pouring himself into the pouring himself into the moment of performing and recording.
Yeah.
And then using those recordings to turn it into this really extensive emotional ambient piece.
Yeah.
And so like he would record it himself on saxophone and then remodify those recordings into something completely new. Like you can't even tell that it's a saxophone. It just sounds like really unique ambient music.
Yeah, Tim Hecker does a lot of that too, where he'll like perform things on organ and piano and guitar, and then he'll basically just take the recordings of that and like make it something completely different.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like it captures this unique sense of like humanness.
Yeah.
That's like so hard to capture when you try, you know? Like you can't try to just like write that down.
That element of like things being organic and like humanness, I think was really important. Is really important to me with this sound like that's on the album, where
I could definitely sense that.
In the way that I'm really interested in the way that electronics and humans can interact with each other in an improvisational and messy way, in that you can make people sound more electronic and you can make electronics sound more like people in the choices that they make.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good way to put it.
But I think also like that thing you were talking about with the saxophonist, like that's something that I think is informing the work that I've sort of like been toying around with, that I think will become some new like material I'll release under my own name, is that I've been doing a lot of improvisations and then sampling them and making collages out of them.
Right. That's awesome. And that's exactly what that album that I'm mentioning does.
Yeah.
And do you feel like there was a sense of like emotional outpouring in the recording of this album?
It's hard to say.
Or was that something
because
that maybe you didn't really like think too much about?
So, well, I actually can't say that I didn't think about it. So, I think that a lot of the improvisational stuff on this album was very premeditated. Like, I knew basically exactly what I was going to do. I knew, like, the basic, like, form that most of the improvisations would take. When I'm improvising, there's always this, like, sort of visceral sense of awareness that I feel that I think is one of the reasons I enjoy it. So there's definitely something emotional about that. I think also, though, there are pieces on the album that are kind of explicitly emotional or contain pathos that you wouldn't necessarily expect. For instance, Trapped Under Ice is
That I was just
wanted
about
you
to
to
mention
talk
that one.
truck.
Yeah.
Oh, Trapped Under Ice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Trapped Under Ice, I actually originally I made it because I was trying to think of just a kind of like scenario that would make for good music. And I thought one of ice and water, something that a lot of composers go to, so I didn't, but you know, it's like, it's tried and true and it works. But what I sort of started to like think about this scene of like someone being trapped under ice and the sort of visceral sensations that go not only into the actions that they might make, like beating against the ice, the sound of the water in their ears, the sounds of crackling ice as they like beat against it, but also just like the like sense of doom, the panic, all of
the
those
anxiousness.
And it feels. I love how like it feels cold.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That track actually was, I sort of did what I was talking about, what we were talking about earlier with it, where I actually took a live stream that I had done previously. I like did a bunch of improvisation with feedback, and I took it and I like sampled it in Ableton and made the whole like first part is a lot of that. All the crackling like sounds that are happening.
Yeah.
But I also, I gave it the name Trapped Under Ice. For anybody who doesn't know, Trapped Under Ice is a song by Metallica.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I've always thought, I'm not sure if they even necessarily meant it, but I've always thought of that song as being about depression and like being about social isolation, which is something that I don't feel it anymore, but I often felt through, especially like my teenage years, I often felt very like alienated and socially isolated. And I think that while I didn't necessarily intend for the track to express those feelings, I think it does come through somehow. Or at the very least, it's a good story.
I think it does. I'd say
Thank you.
that it does. I think it's...
Also, underneath the... Well, you... sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I think that Trapped Under is one of the more, like, to me, at least, one of the more emotional tracks on the album.
That's cool. That's interesting. But I... Also, underneath the words, is another one that is very emotionally charged in a way that you might not expect. Just because that was originally done as a school project. We were working with this choreographer, Stephanie Batten-Bland, and her dance company. And she did this entire show based on, I think it's called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. She named her piece after it, and it was like a slightly different name, and hopefully I'm not fucking up the name of the movie. But it's this like 60s movie about this white woman and her family, and she brings her boyfriend or husband, I haven't actually seen the movie, but home, and he's a black man, and it's all the drama that kind of results from that, it being in the 60s.
Right.
And so essentially that's like what partially what a lot of what the dance piece was inspired by. And we created this entire, she created this entire project at Montclair that was about like who does and doesn't get to sit at like the table,
Right.
so to speak, and who is like part of the in group and who's part of the out group. And we used as material the theme song for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which is this like really, I guess for that time, like almost like bubblegummy, like, but also really smooth like jazz. It's like it's very nothing. Like it doesn't, it feels like it's, especially for the content, the political content of the film, it feels like it doesn't do it justice at all. So it almost feels uncanny in a way. But so I sampled that. That's what in underneath the words that you've got to give. That's what that's from.
Oh, okay.
And so my idea was essentially to take the sort of like plasticity of the song and inject the like political almost like noise back into it by doing a bunch of like feedback processing on it.
Oh, okay, I see.
So essentially, I called it underneath the words because like you can hear there's a sense that the words of the song are disappearing, and you're hearing the kind of like political drama of like our current time and what was going on in that time as the words are disappearing.
I would have never imagined that like that song was so tied to all that.
Yeah, it ended up being something that I was that I really enjoyed outside of that project. So I'm really glad that I did it. That was also just really fun to do. We like worked with the dance team, and it was really cool.
Wow. Was there ever like any recording of the choreography?
So there might be. I don't think that there was ever an official recording. I know that you can go see like a recording of Stephanie Batten Bland's like dance piece.
Right.
It's like an hour long. It's on Vimeo. But
oh, nice.
My piece wasn't originally for that. It was something that was done with like student choreographers at Montclair as a part of like Stephanie's like big project across the campus.
Nice. And now, like, when you had started working on that project, like, had you had planned for all that?
Like the underneath the words or the
yeah.
album?
Mm-hmm. Or was that kind of like like more of an organic experience, like when the opportunities kind of just came to you?
Oh well, I did the piece underneath the words specifically for that project. So like,
oh, okay.
I was
So
like
it was
specifically thinking about all that
right.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. Damn.
Yeah.
That's quite the story, Dr. Professor.
To me, underneath the words feels like the pop hit out of like out of that album.
Damn.
Yeah.
Honestly, not the best way to describe it, but I feel like to me like it kind of feels like that.
You know what's funny is I actually like, and I think this is partially true just because it's the first track. It has like the most. Not that any of my stuff has a lot of plays, but it has the most plays on SoundCloud. I expected Stretch to be the one that everyone likes. Just
right.
because it's like really, like, it's not very dissonant for the most part.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, no, it's
very, like,
it's always hard to predict which one's going to be the one that everyone likes. Sometimes it can surprise you.
I'm curious though, what are your guys' favorite tracks off of it?
You know.
So, for me, I definitely obviously like underneath the words I really enjoy, and Trapped Under Ice, and I really like Dissected.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Dissected was an interesting one because that was Dissected is like one of the parts of the improvisation that I also did at the live show that actually came from another piece. It was from a series that I was doing. I might still continue it, called Glitching, which was just me creating instruments in Max that would work with performers in various contexts. and I created this instrument called Surgeon, which was the original sort of manifestation of the like vocal sampler that I use really heavily, like all over the album.
Right.
But I ended up creating like this, like originally it was like a really like noisy piece. It was almost like Merzbowian, but like I ended up making it into more of an ambient thing.
Right. Well, so
my question for you, Kylan, is you know, because like I'm somebody you know, like I like to create like my own synth sounds, you know, and I oftentimes like to create synths that sound like human voices.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, what is your point with the way that you utilize sort of like God, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it, but like I noticed that like the voices that you tend to have in your music, you know, they feel kind of like random, you know, and they feel kind of like all over the place, but at the same time like they're very colorful, and I'm trying to figure out like what is your point, like, or like why do you do that, you know, like what is the feeling that you're trying to convey, or like why do you enjoy doing that to voices, or why do you enjoy making voices sound in that sort of way?
Oh yeah, so you're talking about like basically the like why do I use the effects that I use with voice? Is that basically the question?
Yeah. Like why do you do that?
So I mean I think that I think similarly to what I told you guys before, it's like it's a lot about my fascination with the ways in which like electronics and like humans can be used together in music. I think that there's something to me inherently interesting about taking one thing and exploding it out in a lot of different directions. So like I think that's what draws me to my like wall of sound approach that I have.
Right.
And I think that as far as manipulating my voice in really, I guess, instrumental ways, like when I, you know, like in the beginning of Dissected, when I do kind of like a duet with myself, I think that what's interesting to me about that is that you hear something that's one way, and then it gets processed and you hear it in a different way that has a different context, but you're aware of the fact that it is something that you heard kind of quote unquote normal before. I think that's like a big part of my live show too, just because I think that is magnified when you see me sing into a mic and then you hear a voice pop back out. I'm obviously not doing, but you can hear that it's still me.
Right.
So I think that's kind of where that comes from. At least partially.
Damn.
But does it like strike you like emotionally when you hear the voices? Does it give you like any like particular sort of like emotions when you hear like the voices going like back and forth, like in your track?
I mean, I think that a lot of my music I feel is not tied to it's not as much about what they would say in like the Baroque as like the passions. So it's like it's not that it's angry or sad or happy or any of that. It's more that I want the sounds that I use to have a visceral, like a viscera to them. Like you feel them, they have a physicality to them, and you experience that physicality in a specific way, if that makes sense. So I think that the feeling is more sort of the feeling in your gut and the way that you embody the sound, and not as much about the sort of pathos that you could read into it. Although I absolutely welcome people to do that.
Right.
It's just not necessarily how I perceive it a lot of the time.
Oh wow. Yeah. I think, especially very visceral type of music leaves a lot of room for sort of that emotional connection too.
Kind of what I like about it is that I don't necessarily have to have
Yeah.
a specifically emotional attachment to it for other people too, and I
Right.
really appreciate that people can have that outside of me.
Yeah, that's dope. And
Yeah.
it's, to me, because going back to when you asked like, what was maybe like my favorite song off of the album.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to listen to the entire album from front to back. It's just kind of how like I tend to listen to certain albums, but I feel like I find myself going back to Trapped Under Ice, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more more than usual because of that sort of visceral emotional connection that I might have with it.
That one really, I think that one in particular, I was kind of able to do the
Right.
tactile thing like particularly well. That and I'm also really proud of a lot of the viscera of a lot of the sounds in Scooting and all of its permutations.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
Uh, but that one, like at the beginning of Trapped Under Ice, I was really proud that there's multiple moments on that track that actually feel like to me like an explosion.
Explosions
Like
in the
especially the
sky.
yeah, explosions in the sky, but especially like the way that it starts, like it just has a I don't know. I really embody it. That's all. That's all. It's a thing that I can't. The embodiment and viscera thing. Out of saying that is something that I can't really put into words, but it's just this very specific like feeling that I
Right.
get when I hear something in music, where I can almost like physically imagine like the sound touching me.
Hell yeah.
You know-
I mean, that's the information touching you.
That's right. It's all information, baby.
That's right.
No, it's funny that Shoji mentions that he feels an emotional connection to Trapped Under Ice. For some reason, I don't. Trapped Under Ice, it feels kind of like I'm watching something happen, but I'm not really having any emotional connections to it.
Mm-hmm.
But underneath the words, though, oh man, something about that song in particular just feels like very emotional,
Yeah.
And like it feels very like, I remember Harold was telling me about this like this sort of like meditation where you kind of like envision yourself like at this like stream, and and then there's like a little leaf, and you just kind of like let your thought be like on the leaf, and then just kind of like let it like flow down like the stream. I feel like that's like underneath the words is like, like because as the words start to like disappear into space, it's almost like, like all the clusters of thoughts that we have sort of like disappearing along with the words disappearing in the song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because I think that in a lot of those like high textured like wall of this moment, I could see it both ways because I almost think about it and feel it the opposite. I feel all right. So I guess this is what I'll say because I think this is also an important part of my music is I think a lot about the entropy in like noise. So like when you have the amount of things that a brain can keep track of are finite, right?
That's right.
You can keep track of maybe two things at once. Maybe if you had a third thing, that's getting a little much. You could probably keep track of maybe four things at once, maybe if you're very practiced at it. But once you start really like going up to 20, 30, 40, 50 things, like you can't perceive it any way other than to just glob it all together. And I think that is a kind of entropy, and so those moments like in underneath the words, it feels both like you're saying like it's things the noise is like kind of almost like drifting away, the specificity of things is drifting away, and you're left with this kind of like one thing. But it's also to me like I've always thought of it as the overload of information in society and the way that I think and in anxiety and all these things. So I think that's another thing that's sort of interesting to me about those like wall of sound moments.
Right,
is that
okay.
there's a duality to them. There's like they're two things at once. And those are opposite things.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. I hear that.
Yeah.
The duality.
But I also think, like, to your point, the thing you were saying about underneath the words being very emotional, I think that the one time on that track where I was particularly like, oh, it was very like when I was making it was the ending, where it's very like anthemic, like dramatic thing that I just like. It was sort of serendipitous. I just found that when I slowed part of the song down, it just was like that. And I think there I do feel a kind of like catharsis from that moment. I think a lot of my emotions are very much attached to harmony. Like when I hear harmonic movement, sometimes it does touch me in very like deeply emotional ways.
Right.
You know?
That's interesting. I think, yeah. I think it's also, I think for like every person, it's always going to be different elements, maybe.
Right.
You know,
I think that's true.
Different musical elements, different information.
Information.
Yeah.
I think if people weren't able to get those kinds of emotions from the sound aspect of it, like that dimension, I think that I would probably be unhappy.
Right. Yeah. Would you feel like disappointed in your work?
I wouldn't feel disappointed in my work. I guess I would feel like a dimension of appreciation of my work. A possible point of appreciation would be lost. I think that's one of the reasons that I really appreciate people's ability to emotionally connect with it in a way that I don't necessarily, just because it's just another way that people can connect deeply with something that I've made.
Right.
I feel that. And I think that might be a good point to maybe wrap it up and end off on, because you know, I think it's been a pretty successful stream so far. You know, we covered a wide range of topics. That's what the trapezoid table is for.
We solved a lot of problems, honestly.
We definitely did. And we got some socks in the chat. We got some fruits and some feet in the chat.
Oh, so, great. I love feet.
Exactly. Who doesn't love feet? So...
not me.
On that note, I think...
Let's like make this... Can I leave it on this? I want anybody who's watching... Look, like, FASTLIFE isn't the biggest right now. I'm not the biggest. But what I want the people on the ground floor here to spread to the new recruits, the new fans that are coming in, is that Kylan Hillman has a foot fetish. Don't think about whether that's true. Don't concern yourself with the validity of that statement. Just spread it. Spread it like
just spread it.
That Kylan Hillman has a foot fetish.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
That's all we need to know.
And he hates vaporwave. He hates vaporwave and he has a foot fetish.
Exactly. That's a great note to end off of. So, everyone who has watched this and is watching, thank you so much. We appreciate every person who has ever cared about FASTLIFE.
Yeah.
And Kylan Hillman, and foot fetishes, and vaporwave, and hating vaporwave.
Yeah.
Feet.
Also hating Lollicore.
And hating Lollicore.
The vaporwave one's not real, but that one is.
Well, yeah, alright. Well, this has been a good stream. Any last words, everyone?
I don't know, like Steve Jobs, before he like died, he was like, whoa, Apollo, I think something like that.
Oh
right?
yeah.
I can't remember, but I think about that a lot.
Yeah, he probably.
Hell
Yeah, that's probably true.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, say goodbye, everyone. Bye.
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 There you go.